Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Teammates. I'm Katin Ong, and today I'm very privileged to be joined by the amazing Mr. Peter Mach. And Peter is a very accomplished MBA graduate from Columbia University. He is a former executive director of Goldman Sachs. Now he is a highly accomplished property developer and also the founder of the AMA Foundation, providing teaching scholarships for disadvantaged people here in Vietnam. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katin.
So I thought I'd start this video off by asking you if you could tell us a little bit more about your story growing up and sort of how it's led you to where you are today.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Ho Chi Minh City, here in Saigon, in District 5. My mother is Vietnamese. My real biological father is American, so I'm, I guess, a child of the Vietnam War. My father left when my mother was pregnant. She didn't want to leave with him. So after giving birth, my mother couldn't afford to take care of me, so I became adopted by a Chinese Vietnamese man from District 5 here in Saigon. So I grew up with him. I don't know who my biological dad is, and my mother remarried and has another family today. Long story short, I moved to New York City in 1984 when I was 12 years old. And that was when I first formally got educated at around 6th grade in America. So we moved straight to Bronx, New York, very famous from Jackie Chan movies, and started learning English then. At first I was sitting there like a mute, not knowing a word. And very quickly, by 7th grade, my English improved dramatically. I grew up in a really tough neighborhood, but thank God I had a few good friends who kind of kept me straight. But we were in a neighborhood filled with Vietnamese and Cambodian gangsters, in addition to, a Black and Hispanic community that was relatively rough. So 7th, 8th grade were relatively, I think, tough years, but happy years with a few good friends. And I got very lucky to meet a person named Michael Agliardo. We called him Father Agliardo, or Father A at the time, in 8th grade. I met him inadvertently through a friend, and he taught me English in 8th grade summer after I came out into what we call into junior high school in America. And he got me a scholarship into a private high school. If not for that, I would have gone onto a school called JFK, or John F. Kennedy High School, where a lot of gangsters were there to recruit people like us. And I got very lucky. I didn't want to go to that school. So after meeting Father A and giving the opportunity to actually enter a private Jesuit high school on half scholarship, half work grant, I did extremely well in high school, and the high school was inside the University of Fordham University in the Bronx, so it's called Fordham Prep, and got an amazing education there. It was a very safe neighborhood, inside the gates of the university. So all I did was study, play sports, go home, every day doing the same. When senior year came around, I guess I had to look for universities. We're from a poor family. My father had to raise 3 children. I was the youngest. So I actually at one point thought about not attending university because we didn't have the financial means. So I thought about working in order to give back to my family, help out my dad. We were on what we call welfare or public assistance. We had no money. My father didn't speak English. So it was sort of challenging time for the family. And I thought about not going to university, work. But thank God for good guidance counselors and high school teachers. And they asked me, if I thought about applying to schools like Columbia, and my answer was, "What's Columbia?" So, I didn't grow up the way that my children grew up today, which is, having parents who've gone to these schools and, having resources around you to really help you make decisions. I was clueless. I was just a good student, a good athlete. That's it. But luckily, Father Fitzpatrick, my high school counselor, did a great job in advising me and encouraging me to apply. And I did apply to Columbia. I got in. So I went to Columbia for 4 years for my undergraduate degree. But also after 3 years, I had a chance to apply for what they call a 5-year program at Columbia. So effectively it's for students who are further ahead in their coursework. So they can really finish their undergraduate degree in 3 years, 3.5 years. And they start the graduate work at the same time in the 4th year at Columbia. So it's a BA MA program.
Wow.
So I applied for that. I got in my junior year. And they recruit about 3 students a year, 2-3 students a year to kind of transition to this program. So I got very fortunate to have been accepted. And I graduated in 5 years with 2 degrees and changed my life. Yeah, so the decision to go to high school changed my life, and then college, of course. And after Columbia, I worked for Goldman Sachs as my first job in New York City. A year later, they transferred me, or I raised my hand to take up a position at Goldman Sachs Hong Kong. And from there, I worked there for about 6 years or so, and went on to Credit Suisse as a director to run their options and futures business, what we call derivatives. So I ran that desk for about another 6 years and became a managing director at Credit Suisse. So I guess back in mid-2000s, 2005, 2006, Credit Suisse was the king of derivatives in the region. So we did extremely well as a business. And I got promoted and, managed a lot of countries and a lot of businesses in derivatives. So I had a really great career on Wall Street from New York to Hong Kong. And long story short again, I started my own company in 2007, really starting in 2006 and 2007. So I decided to, through business dealings with Vietnam starting in 2006, I started getting my feet wet here, seeing opportunities that encouraged me to really go out on my own and set up my own business. So I did that in late 2006 into 2007. I launched a Vietnam fund to invest here in Vietnam in real estate as well as in equities, private and public. So I did that for a number of years. And then took some time off. So the business took some time off. I set up a charity in late 2011, 2012, AMA Education Foundation to give back. So I did that for a few years on my own without working. I was really taking a break from work, reassessing what I want to do with my life while giving back at the same time through the charity. And there was another opportunity in 2014 to invest here. So I got back into business. So a company that I started with my partner, son, we run from 2014 to today. So I guess today we have about 815 employees, and we've had good success in the past years. So I'm still doing that and enjoying work and family life, and at the same time charity work at the same time. So it's been a wonderful journey, something that I can only dream of. So I feel very fortunate, gratified, and that's why I'm also giving back, because I feel like I'm the luckiest bastard on earth.
Yeah. You've had certainly an amazing career, as you said yourself. Can I ask you a little bit about how did you find transitioning between sort of career pathways? I mean, you've worked in finance, and you had a couple different jobs there, and then you moved into property development, and you're also running this amazing foundation. How do you find are there any like challenges or highlights you've encountered in doing that?
Oh, that's a great question and very relevant for anyone making career change, needing to overcome challenges in that transition. So I certainly went through that. It's always difficult. So I think going from a bank to starting your own business is a huge decision and a big transition. And then I think going from running a fund to becoming a property developer is another change or transformation, completely different skill sets, right? Going from something financial to something very physical and tangible, like real estate, is completely a different skill set. I think it's not for the faint-hearted. You gotta have the risk appetite for it, be ready for it. In terms of, I would say, in terms of mindset, in terms of also finance, like be ready to lose everything and still be okay with it, and be ready to be a loser and be okay with it. So, for example, when I started my Vietnam fund with my partner gig in 2007, the '08 crisis came. So we went through a really rough time in launching the fund. We launched into the worst possible period. And we were supposed to get $500 million, and we ended up with 1/10 of that. But we still launched, and it became a very difficult time to invest as well. So we had to ride through a very difficult period. And then we had to sell the business. It wasn't a bad business, but it was a difficult business to grow given bad timing. So sometimes, what they call luck is also has to do a lot with timing. Luck has to be on your side. You can make the best decisions, but the wrong time will kill you. And it was a bad timing for us. But you learn the most. I would categorize my first foray into entrepreneurship, as a great learning lesson, but unprofitable. And but it's profitable from a learning perspective. You learn more from challenges like this. I wouldn't call it a failure. And a failure in the sense that I couldn't grow it, so I sold it in order to start something new. I could have stuck with it and grow it later, but the question was, okay, how much time do I have to stay in? How many more years do I have to lose to wait for this crisis to be over with before I can reset and grow? So it was a very calculated move to get out of the business and to restart. But mentally, you cannot be sort of feel down about yourself. You have to have the confidence to kind of pick yourself up again and do it again. So I think that's what entrepreneurship is about, that you're willing to accept your loss and not let it really bother you and defeat you to the point that you stop believing in yourself, or it's just a question of timing. It's not your ability, it's not the opportunity. So I think you have to be very level-headed to make that decision so that you can still pick up the pieces, feel good about yourself, move on, let the past be the past, and restart. So it's kind of like, in some ways, moving on from a relationship that didn't work out, because it was bad timing. Not so much my partner, but the business itself was going through a rough period. And, sometimes you don't want to deal with that turbulence. So letting it go was the right decision, and restarting was also the best decision. And even restarting was difficult, to go into real estate was something entirely new for me and my partner. And, we had to learn new skill sets, learning by doing, and doing a lot of research to prepare ourselves, hiring the right people to make sure that we cover our weaknesses. So I think that's really important from a manager standpoint, like in managing risk in businesses, just having the right resources and people around you, a strong board, which we have, and having good financial management skills, which we have, and getting timing right, managing risks properly, and taking advantage of the opportunities at the right time, and dialing back when it's not worth the risk reward. So I think you get better over time. But again, like I said, one, not for the faint-hearted, and two is that I think you have to have the right personality for it and the right knack for it, and that drives your risk appetite, your tolerance level, your pain tolerance, and build up a lot of mental fortitude to withstand turbulence and stay the course, knowing that believing in yourself that you're going to make it. And along the way, I think pick up new skills. So one thing I always encourage, and I think this way for my life, which is I always want to be learning. I always assess every 5 years whether I'm doing the things that I want to do and reinventing myself in case I want to do something new. How do I prepare myself, reinvent myself? Because you're constantly reinvesting in yourself, right? In order to reinvent, you have to reinvest in yourself. So you don't get into or get out of something like this. You need to give yourself 1, 2, 3 years of prep time in or out of something. So I think people take that for granted, that you really got to put in a lot of deep thinking, planning before you execute. And people don't take the first two parts, don't give it sufficient time for the most part. So I think for me, I always have sort of 5-year plans. And if you have good planning, execution gets easier, you're more prepared, So as some people say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So I think if you're prepared, you feel like timing is right, you take on that opportunity. Well, some people call that luck, but you can only be lucky because you're at the right place at the right time, and you were prepared to take advantage of the opportunities. If you're not prepared, how are you going to take advantage of opportunities presented to you? Sometimes you place yourself there, sometimes opportunities just jump in front of you, and that's luck, good timing. But at the end of the day, you have to take action. The more prepared you are, the more ready you are to make investment decisions or other type of decisions to take advantage of opportunities, And it doesn't have to be business. It could be relationship, it could be, education, anything really. So I really think for me, the 5-year planning works. The approach to growing, like having that growth mindset that people call it, to be willing to be an open-minded learner, constantly growing, constantly acquiring new skills that you're interested in. It's a very healthy way of living and working for your entire life, and I credit this again to my educational training, through the Jesuits in high school and through Columbia University and the core curriculum, that I like learning and growing. I like doing things constantly, sort of reinventing myself. And it takes time, I think when people look at your life top down, they think you're making these big jumps and why is it so easy? Well, it's not easy. But if you have a plan, you stick with it, you know how you're going to execute it, depending on, changes around you. You need to learn how to adapt. Well, if you stick with that, you're going to be okay in the end if you're well prepared, But I think planning is really important. I cannot emphasize that more. So I think it's part of me as well, having this approach to living and working that I find to be fun and exciting. I don't like to have a monolithic type of career. Once I get bored, I need to plan ahead and get out of it. So one of the reasons I left banking, I left derivatives, is because I felt like I was learning less And if I stayed on for another 5-10 years, I would make a lot of money. But am I happy with myself, doing what I'm doing, learning what I'm learning? Is my learning curve still like this? You go through a steep learning curve when you're younger, it kind of flattens out if you stay in the same job. But once you make a career change, you have to learn completely new skills. Are you ready for that challenge? Are you excited? Or do you shy away from that? A lot of people shy away from that and just kind of keep doing this for the rest of their lives. The question is, some people are happy with it, and that's fine. But if you're not, be ready to change, be challenged, be okay with it, okay to feel like a loser. You win again if you have to, right fortitude and attitude. And I think that's what makes life exciting, is just kind of constantly reinventing yourself, challenging yourself, and okay to lose a little bit in return for longer term, bigger gains. So that's my attitude in a nutshell.
That's amazing. You covered the next question. I was going to ask you about your outlook or advice that you would give to other people, but I think that was very well articulated. I guess the next thing and sort of final rounding off question that I was going to ask you to expand a little bit more on was your work with creating your foundation and sort of what led you to want to give back in this way and how you're finding what you're doing currently.
Yeah, I think charity work for me has always been important. So at Fordham Prep, we're required to do 40 hours of service, and I think community service has always been in my blood from high school training. College, I think most people don't care about that because you're busy with schoolwork and partying and all that stuff. But I think when I got to my late 30s, I was pretty established as a professional already. And I looked at myself at the time, and I looked at other philanthropists who were typically much older, right? And I said to myself, well, do I wait another 15, 20 years to start something like this to give back? Or why don't I just do it now? How do I know that I'm still going to be around in 5 years or even 1 year, right? I'm not a fatalistic person, but, I do have friends who have died young. And, in our business life, we face a lot of stress, and I realized that I can die anytime, really. So why wait until I'm 60 to start? So that was I remember that was my mindset when I started wanting to give back. I was like, why wait? Let's do it now. So I walked into this I did a lot of research on this university with a friend of mine who set up a meeting at this University of Education that was found in Richmond City. And after a few months of meetings, we're starting a program. And I just at first wrote them a check for 4 years so they could take me seriously. And I wanted to give scholarships to 15 students for the next 4 years to anchor them down. And they're the poorest, but also very smart students with full potential, like me, the way that I grew up. So I wrote them that check. And then my friends found out. My friends like, hey, we want to chip in and help out too. We heard about what you're doing. I was living in Singapore at the time. So in a couple of weeks, I got $80,000 from my friends. So I can't just take your money. So I set up a foundation, and we all donated into it. And from there to today, it's been 10 years. And we're now supporting about almost 800 students in 3 different cities. Many of these students have graduated to become teachers. So the idea is like a big brother, big sister program. We take them in when they're first-year students at the university. They're mostly from super poor, distressed family situations. And they come into University of Education to study for the BA. We support some MA and PhD too, but for the most part, bachelor's. And we give them 4-year scholarships. And over time, we have migrated into from a scholarship program to a big brother, big sister program where we try to have volunteers to come in to speak to them, mentor them, spend time with them to really build up their level of self-esteem, self-confidence. I think that's the most important thing that a person can have and want to be successful is believing in yourself. And poor people, and I've been through poverty when I was younger, really struggle with this because you have no one to count on. My father didn't speak English, and you really just have your teachers and your friends. And I think without support from my teachers and Father A, I wouldn't be here today. So for me to start this and doing what I'm doing at AMA today is really driven by my sense of gratitude, that I look back and people who are so meaningful and material to my success are my dad, right? Supported 3 kids despite his poverty. He didn't need to adopt me, he did. Father Agliardo, who got me into a high school scholarship, and many teachers in my life. The most important people in my life have been teachers, in addition to my dad. And I think for me to give back is also a token of honor for these people, but it's also my expression of gratitude for everything that I have, that I feel that I owe to these kids that we're supporting. And they deserve the same opportunity that I got throughout my life. And why do I deserve this luck and not them? And how is that fair, that I had it and they don't? So I think part of this is really also my statement on social justice as well. That I feel like I'm so lucky. To some extent, I feel like, I have too much luck. And I think it's important for us, to understand this sense of, noblesse oblige, that we are capable and we have resources and we should share it with society, right? That we shouldn't go from poverty to being successful and forget where we come from as if that world no longer exists, when in fact, if you look at the world today, we're even more divided, rich and poor, and along many other lines. And we have to bridge those gaps in various ways. And AMAs is one of my ways of bridging this gap and trying to give the same opportunities that I got and creating a more fair world for these kids who are very deserving like I was. So for me, gratitude is important. Like that we appreciate where we come from, what our parents did for us, what our teachers did for us, and that we should do the same for others. These underprivileged students that I see here in Vietnam. So my motivation is very simple, very personal and private. In the past, I don't really share my life story with people. And over time, I realized that by sharing with the students, I can give them hope, right? That I live the American dream today because of support that I got because of my education. Really, my education being supported by important teachers and educators and generous people who supported my scholarship.